Chapter 391, The Great Seafarer Roselle.
I know that.
Audrey's eyes were half-turned, and her chin was slightly raised. She happily cast her gaze diagonally across her, towards a stone pillar that supported the dome. She quickly withdrew her gaze, ready to admire the reaction of Mr. Hanged Man after he heard the answer. Fours vaguely realized one thing.
The so-called Roselle's diary can be exchanged with Mr. Fool for answers to certain questions, and maybe even some items.
Roselle's diary? Is it referring to the notes that are written with Roselle's unique symbols that no one can interpret? They were actually diary entries? Mr. Hanged Man's tone sounded very firm, and Mr. Fool didn't retort him.
I've encountered many, but I've never bought any of them because I wasn't interested. Ah, yes, Miss Audrey has quite a few. She's a fanatic when it comes to this. But that dog of hers. Last week, I don't remember it too well. Basically, it tore up many books and notes, including all of the diary entries from Emperor Roselle.
The sudden surprise and disappointment that emerged had filled her heart and made her want to raise her hands, cover her ears, and scream. That wasn't enough to express her current feelings, Fours bitterly thought.
I hate dogs.
The Hanged Man's request was somewhat beyond Klein's expectations. However, it was the easiest for him to complete. He chuckled and said,
Sure. Do you want everyone to hear it, or do you want to be the only one to know it?
Alger replied without hesitation.
Only myself.
He didn't have the spirit of selfless devotion to others. Klein laughed and blocked the senses of the other members, which made Miss Justice very upset. She was waiting to see Mr. Hanged Man's stunned and shocked expression, as though she had done something great herself. Although she couldn't proclaim it out loud, she still looked forward to the subsequent reaction after Mr. Hanged Man knew the answer. Audrey grumbled inwardly.
But now, that detestable Hanged Man has deprived me of this happiness.
Of course, she was very clear that his request was absolutely justified. She pursed her lips and thought,
But I already know the answer.
At this moment, Klein leisurely flipped over the card of blasphemy and held it vertically, allowing the Hanged Man to directly see the black-armored, crowned, and caped Roselle. It was common to see the portrait of Emperor Roselle, so Alger recognized him immediately. More importantly, there was a clear sign on the card saying, Sequence 0, Black Emperor.
Indeed. It's the rumored deck of cards which contains the Paths of the Divine, made by Emperor Roselle. It's the original prototype of tarot cards. Sequence 0, Black Emperor. Is this the lawyer pathway to becoming divine? Mr. Fool has been collecting Roselle's diary all this time, apparently in order to find clues to this deck of cards, and in a matter of months, he has already acquired one.
Alger was surprised and delighted, as well as excited and agitated. All of a sudden, he inexplicably felt that the future of the Tarot Club was incomparably bright. Previously, he had only been intimidated by the mysteriousness and potency of Mr. Fool, and he had only held the notion of using the Tarot Club to exchange information and goods. But now he began to think of the advantages that he and the other members could reap when Mr. Fool managed to collect all of Emperor Roselle's cards. At that time, the Tarot Club might become the most powerful secret organization. Alger couldn't help but look forward to the future. Then Klein said slowly,
A card of blasphemy.
He then immediately removed the isolation barrier. As soon as she regained her senses, Justice Audrey immediately turned her gaze towards the Hanged Man. Through the blurred image, she could vaguely read the remaining shock, joy, and yearning from the other party.
That's more like it.
Audrey was immediately greatly satisfied.
A card of blasphemy. Indeed, it's related to the blasphemy slate.
Alger bowed his head in thought for a few seconds and began to conjure the 3 pages of Roselle's diary. Soon the 3 yellowish-brown, goatskin parchments were in Klein's hands. He casually lowered his gaze and started reading at a moderate pace.
15th March. I really am the protagonist. With just some archaeological clues and folklore, I found a ghost ship left behind by the Solomon Empire in the Fog Sea's boundary at the Auric Archipelago, the Dark King. It's really cool. There are some ancient books on it, including a treasure map pointing to some nameless island. That's the final settlement of a great noble of the Solomon Empire who was defeated and left the northern continent. Everything that he left behind is there. This treasure will definitely belong to me, 19th March. After much deliberation and consideration, I finally decided to set out on a long voyage. After that, I'll enter the Royal Army as an officer, so it will be hard for me to have an opportunity such as this again. Edwards and Grimm are willing to take the risk and follow me into that foggy sea. Actually, I don't just want the treasures. I also wanted to verify something. From the sun, the red moon, to the trajectory of the stars in the sky, as well as the changes in 4 seasons. All sorts of signs and different data to prove that the world I'm on should be a planet. In that case, it shouldn't only be the northern and southern continents. Based on the various data, the land mass occupied by the 2 continents totaled up isn't even 1/10 of the planet's surface area. Could the rest of it be the sea and islands? To the west of the northern and southern continent is the Fog Sea. To the east is the Sonia Sea. I suspect that there are other continents at the end of these 2 seas, just like how the southern continent is at the end of the Berserk Sea. Maybe I can find a brand new continent, the western continent. Let's go, great seafarer Roselle Columbus Magellan Gustav, go and verify your conjecture. The emperor sure was reckless when he was young. He actually dared to go on a voyage just because he received a treasure map that he had no clue about its authenticity, or if it held any danger. No, he's as rash as he was when he was young, even in his old age. The cards of blasphemy are evidence of this.
Klein couldn't help but lampoon. The diary entry seems to be linked to a page or 2 that he had seen before, separated by at most 1 or 2 other diary entries, so Klein was almost certain that Roselle had lost his way in this voyage and ended up finding a primitive island just outside of the safe sea routes. On it there were a number of Beyonder creatures. In the process, he had also teased Grimm and Edwards, who were following him to sea, using the memes of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and the Pirate King. In addition, Grimm, who had been praised by Roselle as the smartest of them all, became increasingly stranger after discovering the primitive island, and he ended up dying in the Fog Sea.
Speaking of which, the idea that the world is a planet is now widely accepted and confirmed by astronomy.
Klein turned to the second page of the diary.
18th April. I discovered the term Western Continent in an ancient book on the Dark King. There really is a Western Continent. However, even during the 4th epoch, in the Solomon Empire, when the gods were still walking the lands, the Western Continent was only a rumor. Legend has it that it was the homeland of the elves, and it was related to the ancient god named Soniathrim. The problem with that is that the elves ended up on Sonia Island, and later scattered themselves over the mountains and the numerous islands in the seas, and there is no legend that they have ever tried to return to their homeland. In short, the end of the Fog Sea might be the Western Continent, the homeland of the elves. Then, what's at the end of the Sonia Sea? Is there really an Eastern Continent? Where is it hidden in the books of myths? Could it be the ethereal, forsaken land of God? Proceed onward, Roselle. You're about to reach your destination, the Western Continent. The Eastern Continent. Roselle guessed that the latter might be the forsaken land of God. Yes, Mr. Hangman once said that many members of the Aurora Order were searching the Sonia Sea for the true Creator's holy residence, and he suspects that the holy residence is the forsaken land of God. This is in line with Emperor Roselle's thoughts. This world has many secrets.
Klein lowered his gaze towards the last few paragraphs of the page.
20th April. All signs indicate that we're about to reach a continent, not the land from an island. There's actually a benefit to being lost. Could it be that I've discovered the so-called Western Continent? 21st April. I saw the abyss. Abyss? Did Roselle see the abyss? The abyss in the sense of mysticism?
Klein's pupils shrank as he quickly turned the page. But the 3rd page of his diary made him doubt his life and his many years of Chinese education. It was filled with the following sentences. Ah, F. Sarker K. Hungry please people in manner.
This.
Klein realized that this was probably a subsequent forgery of Roselle's diary entries. They had randomly pieced together a bunch of sentences based on the original symbols. At this moment, Klein felt like he was seeing intelligible characters and had the urge to curse those forgers. He wanted to know if the abyss mentioned in Roselle's diary was the abyss to which the terms source of evil, land of corruption, and home of devils referred to.
The true abyss is the dark side of the universe, where even gods can be corroded. It should be independent from the real world, just like the spirit world. At the very least, this is what the Book of Secrets, and the books which I came into contact with during my time with the Nighthawks say. If it's not the true abyss, then what did the Emperor mean by abyss?
Klein thought about it over and over again, but was unable to come up with an explanation. He felt extremely dissatisfied, just like when a novel was dropped by the author at the most critical moment. With a single glance, he calmed down and let the diary entries disappear from his hands. Sitting at the head of the long bronze table, he chuckled.
You can begin.
Alger turned his head immediately towards the sun, asking indifferently,
Have you gotten anything from the former captain of that exploratory team?
Chapter 392, Listening to Little Son's Story. Derek was originally anxious to ask about the fallen creator, but when he heard the hanged man's question, he answered honestly,
He's dead.
He's dead?
Justice, the hangman, and the magician expressed their surprise at the same time. They really didn't expect this turn of events. After all, the former captain of the exploratory team had been locked up for decades without any problems. Who would have thought that he would die right after they discussed about him? At this moment, aside from Mr. Fool, only the gloomy and reserved The World maintained his original state. Derek nodded and said,
Yes. After I returned to the City of Silver, I wanted to glean more information from the former captain using Mr. Hanged Man's suggestions, but he suddenly appeared behind me, asking me if I was looking for him.
Upon hearing this, Audrey suddenly drew a short breath. Although the son obviously lacked the ability to tell a good story, his simple descriptions still gave her the feeling of reading horror novels late into the night. It was as if someone was standing behind her, also asking, Are you looking for me? Forrest was as frightened as she was excited, having found the feeling she had as a child listening to her mother's recount of a ghost story. Despite covering her ears in fear, it felt like someone had possessed her and pried open the gaps between her fingers, allowing the voice to be transmitted into her brain. This passage can be written into a novel. As a best-selling writer, she had outstanding professional instincts. Alger, being experienced and knowledgeable, subconsciously asked,
Doesn't your City of Silver's dungeon have seals targeting rampagers? Is there no barrier between them? I remember that last time you said that there was a very powerful and mysterious item at the core.
Yes, but I don't know how or why he came to my room. He completely lost control of himself. His head had split open in the middle and fluid kept flowing out. There were many cracks on his body, and each crack was a mouth.
Derek said, describing the scene in passing.
Then how did you survive? How did you escape from his, no, it's jaws?
Forrest felt immersed, and it was also a question which Audrey was concerned about. Algiers' reaction was very different from theirs. He thoughtfully murmured,
It doesn't make sense to put you, a person who only shows signs of losing control, next to such a dangerous fellow. From the looks of it, the upper echelons of your City of Silver, the members of the 6-member council, deliberately made you interact with him, hoping to gather useful information from him and observe any corresponding changes. So which elder saved you?
Derek's mouth gaped a little, feeling as if Mr. Hanged Man had personally seen and heard everything that had happened.
Just based on the situation I described, he was able to guess the truth. How amazing!
Derek answered with admiration.
Yes, just as you said, the chief appeared just in time and used the mystical item to deal with the rampager.
Noticing the respect and admiration from the son, Alger let out a chuckle.
It's quite an obvious case. As long as one is experienced enough, you'll easily be able to notice this.
Audrey muttered to herself, somewhat depressed.
I didn't think of it.
Forrest ran her hand through her hair, ashamed.
I couldn't tell.
The World repeated Mr. Fool's sigh.
I didn't think in that direction.
After saying that, Alger frowned slightly and slowly asked,
You said that not long after you returned, the former captain of the exploratory team lost control? He didn't lose control for decades, but he suddenly lost control after you returned?
At the same time, Mr. Hangman raised his head and looked at Mr. Fool. Seeing that Mr. Fool was very calm and without any hint of abnormalities, his mood immediately eased. All the uneasiness he had just now turned into questions.
The Almond family is known as blasphemers. Could it be that that person discovered the Tarot Club and the secret above the gray fog, but he was easily finished off by Mr. Fool?
Derek nodded seriously and said,
I guess 2 reasons. One was because I chose the sun pathway, and you said that the Amon family was the descendant of an ancient sun god. The other reason is that he noticed that Mr. Fool was pulling me in to attend the gathering, so changes happened to him, and it was proven to be the latter.
How was it proven?
Alger pressed, leaving no stone unturned. Audrey was astonished and shocked.
Someone sensed that Mr. Fool was pulling him in to attend the gathering? Someone can really detect it? How terrifying. As expected of a blasphemer.
She couldn't help but glance at the end of the long bronze table, and she was immediately comforted by Mr. Fool's calm and indifferent attitude. Audrey thought with joy and relief.
It's just a trivial matter. To Mr. Fool, it's just a trivial matter.
Fours was momentarily surprised and frightened.
So it turns out that someone is able to discover the Tarot Club's gathering. As expected, with so many pathways and so many sequences, there would always be a beyonder power that can detect this. But for me right now, this is a very bad thing. I'm still too weak. I have to advance my sequence as soon as possible.
Derek truthfully described the events.
I saw Amon's shadow, and the Rampager was finished off by the chief. It should be him. This is what he looks like.
With the approval of Mr. Fool, Derek conjured a light screen depicting Amon. A black classic robe, a matching pointed hat, a crystal monocle, a broad forehead, a thin face, black eyes, black curly hair.
Have any of you seen him before?
Derek asked, hopefully. The Hanged Man, Justice, the Magician, and the World shook their heads in unison. Without harping on the matter, Derek continued.
Amon's shadow was eliminated by the chief with the help of the mystical item, leaving being a translucent worm. The chief told me that it was only an avatar of Amon. He explained to me the reason for arranging it, so I lived beside him. After confirming that I was fine, he allowed me to return home. I was a little afraid, unaware of any subsequent actions Amon might take. Therefore, the moment I reached home, I prayed to Mr. Fool.
Wait.
Alger interrupted the son with a frown.
You said that you just experienced such a strange and terrifying incident, and the chief let you go home just like that? And the moment you returned home, you didn't do anything but first pray to Mr. Fool?
Yes.
Derek answered blankly.
What's wrong with that?
He found Mr. Hanged Man's attitude rather odd. Audrey vaguely felt that what the son had done wasn't right, but she couldn't immediately figure out what was wrong. She just believed that if she were in his shoes, she definitely wouldn't have done that. But at that very moment, Fours had already covered her face. The best-selling writer sighed in her heart.
Too careless. I was like that in the past, and the price of that was to use up a stone on my bracelet and start bearing the curse of the full moon.
Alger glanced at Mr. Fool again. Seeing that he remained indifferent, he forced himself to relax. He held his fist against his nose and said,
After having such an interaction with that strange Amon, do you think the chief will just do a cursory inspection and be completely reassured about you? If that's really the case, that former captain of the exploratory team wouldn't have been imprisoned for 42 years. In my experience, the chief has definitely sent someone to secretly monitor you, and you've undoubtedly exposed your own uniqueness. Don't doubt this. If the chief isn't that careful, then there's no way your city of silver can last till this day under such abject environments.
Derek's eyes widened, being even more convinced that Mr. Hanged Man was truly knowledgeable and that what he said made a lot of sense.
The chief discovered something abnormal about me? So that's why he had such an attitude when he heard my report? What should I do? What should I do?
Derek immediately became nervous and frightened. Noticing his concern, Alger scoffed.
However, you don't have to worry about it for now. I just thought about it. Even if your City of Silver's chief found out about your abnormality, he would only suspect that you were possessed by Aemon, that you've been contaminated by him, and wouldn't think of the Tarot Club. You still have time, so you can slowly think of a way to resolve this problem.
Derek calmed down a little and honestly said,
Back then, I really was possessed by Aemon.
What?
Alger blurted out. He nearly left his seat, taking on a combat stance to fend off any accidents. Audrey and Fours immediately tensed up. Only the gloomy world showed mere surprise. Startled by the reaction of Mr. Hanged Man, Derek quickly added,
Mr. Fool discovered it while I was praying.
As he spoke, he conjured the scene which Mr. Fool had sent to him back then. Dressed in a pointed hat and a crystal monocle, Aemon's illusory figure was coiled around his spirit body like the ghost of a python. Seeing Justice and Magician trembling from the bottom of their hearts, the Hanged Man immediately pressed on.
What happened next?
Later, Mr. Fool taught me a ritual. Through the ritual, he sent his angel to purify Aemon's avatar.
Derek replied, without embellishing or simplifying anything. The Hanged Man looked in shock at the end of the bronze table.
Angel?
He hurriedly lowered his head when he realized that his actions were impulsive and impolite. Audrey was momentarily left dazed.
Angel?
Chapter 393, The Worm of Time. After a brief moment of blankness, Audrey quickly understood what the son was saying. He was saying that Mr. Fool had sent his angel to purify Aemon's avatar.
Angel! Mr. Fool sent an angel. Mr. Fool really has an angel as an attendant. Every angel has at least the power of a sequence 2. Although that's expected, and I've already expected it, it's still amazing because it has finally been verified, and only deities can control angels.
Audrey's eyes shone with excitement. She couldn't help but wonder what Mr. Fool's angel looked like.
I wonder if I'll be lucky enough to see that.
She looked towards the end of the long bronze table with admiration and zeal. At the same time, her spiritual perception told her that Mr. World, who was always gloomy, had also sat up straight in shock, which pleased her inexplicably. Fours recalled what had happened to her previously. She had only asked Mr. Fool to interfere with any divinations, and she ended up seeing a 12-winged archangel descend, enveloping her spirit body with its wings.
It really was an angel. Black wings, an archangel with 12 pairs of wings. And this really is just a routine procedure for Mr. Fool. He would send an angel to help members of the gathering get out of trouble.
Fours suddenly didn't dare to look up at the gentleman who was sitting leisurely at the end of the long bronze table. Although she was still only sequence 9, and she hadn't received a complete education in the field of mysticism, she had been involved with different Beyonder circles for 3 years. She would have learned of certain things even if she didn't deliberately find out about them. In the midst of all of this, there was a very important clause. Do not look directly at God. In the past, this sentence didn't leave much of an impression on Fours, but now she suddenly felt that it was the truth derived from countless bloody lessons.
Angel? Mr. Fool really does have an angel by his side.
The Hanged Man felt a wave of fear and baffling excitement hit him, causing his body to tremble slightly.
Previously, when he told us his honorific name and responded to prayers and rituals, this had indirectly expressed the notion that Mr. Fool was equivalent to a god. However, direct evidence was still lacking. But now, an angel has appeared. The existence of that alone is enough to explain many things. Amongst them, the most important thing is that angels represent the most direct form of deterrence. Mr. Fool is not without influence in the real world. Even if he doesn't go through his blessed, he can still project his majesty onto a certain region.
Alger immediately thought of many things. He broke into a cold sweat for his shallow actions in the past while feeling filled with hope for the future. Immediately following that, he started to think about the details of what the son had said.
Mr. Fool didn't let the angel descend directly. Instead, he taught the son a ritual. Through that ritual, he sent the angel to purify Amon's avatar. That's quite a roundabout way of doing things. Does this mean that in order to influence the real world, Mr. Fool must break through many obstacles? This is consistent with my earlier judgment that he is in a sealed and confined state. Or, perhaps there's something special about the forsaken land of God. The reason why Mr. Fool didn't act like this before was because he has escaped a little. He is gradually freeing himself.
Sitting at Mr. Fool's seat, Klein slowly looked around. He was obviously aware of Miss Justice's reverence and zeal, as well as the fear and excitement of the hanged man.
Weren't you always treating me like a god in the past? Why are you acting like this after hearing about the angel? It seems like indirect evidence ultimately cannot be compared to the shock and awe delivered by direct evidence. If a new member were to question me in the future, I would make preparations in advance for the world to step forward and say something. Then, I would casually point my finger and kill him as an example to others. Once things calmed down, I would make anew the world.
Klein's thoughts gradually wandered. Derek didn't quite understand the reactions of Mr. Hanged Man and Miss Justice. From his point of view, wasn't it normal that an angel served a god or a mighty existence? Kachkaha darachacha amalea. Malekema bona chacha tenli garmi. After pondering for a few seconds, he said, Gar miria male acha chacha. Achava maleken la miracha ha 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 ha.
After Amon's avatar was purified, I coughed out a worm that was exactly identical to the one in the dungeon. Do you know what it is?
With the help of Klein's help, the son successfully conjured a projection of a translucent worm with 12 transparent rings. Audrey and Fours looked over curiously. At the same time, they shook their heads, indicating that they had never seen or heard of this kind of worm.
12 rings. In the Book of Secrets, all similar symbols have something to do with time. The Amon family was descended from an ancient sun god, and in ancient times, people believed that the sun and time were related. This can barely be considered an explanation and can be verified from 2 angles. However, why is it that the current eternal blazing sun is the inextinguishable light, embodiment of order, god of deeds, and guardian of businesses, but he doesn't seem to be involved in the domain that deals with time?
In order to maintain his image as the fool, Klein was in no hurry to answer. He smiled, his gaze warm. Packing Mimi Salje tour. Alger thought for a moment before saying,
It should be the vessel that Amon created for his avatar. In legends, there is a type of worm that looks similar, appearance-wise. They have 12 transparent rings and are called worms of time. However, no one has ever seen them before. Many people suspect that it's actually the name of a sequence potion.
Worm of time. So it's very close to my guess. Although this is just a legend spread among beyonders at the middle echelons of particular churches and above, the information itself is of great value. Is Mr. Hanged Man saying this out loud to let others know this because he has been rewarded, having learned a lot of important information from the sun?
Klein felt wistful and amused at the same time.
Worm of time. The vessel that Amon created for his avatar.
Derek whispered to himself, as though he had resolved many of his doubts. He curiously asked,
What can it be used for? I mean, when it's dead?
I don't know.
Faced with the son's trust and respectful gaze, Alger suddenly felt a little ashamed. At that moment, the fool, who was sitting at the very end of the long bronze table, spoke calmly.
The main material of certain rituals.
This was what Klein had surmised from the contents of the Book of Secrets. However, he wasn't worried that he would say anything wrong, because it was almost impossible to prove it.
Failing to find the ritual that requires a worm of time just serves to prove that you're not knowledgeable enough.
Klein casually added inwardly, Certain rituals. Audrey and the others instantly let their imaginations run wild.
Thank you, the great Mr. Fool.
Derek got up halfway and bowed. Following that, the topic steered towards the matter that threatened the existence of the City of Silver.
The exploratory team is back. I'm referring to the team led by Shepherd Elder Lovia, They completed the exploration of the fallen creator's half-destroyed temple and have returned to the City of Silver. And I discovered that a few of the team members that I know have undergone a certain degree of change.
They've been corrupted by the true creator.
Alger didn't hesitate to point that out with a tone of certainty.
The true creator?
Audrey couldn't help but look at the end of the bronze table. She remembered very clearly that the true creator had once had its descent foiled by Mr. Fool's Blessed. She had even guessed that the leader of their tarot club was going to be the nemesis of evil gods.
Really?
Derek returned, refusing to believe it. The Hanged Man calmly said,
Describe their changes in detail.
I still feel like he's the same person, but he's very different from before. His original optimism has now turned heavy. There's only a polite smile left from his former bright smile.
Derek shared everything abnormal that he had discovered, including the sudden improvement in Shepherd Elder Lovia's state. Alger said in deliberation,
The situation might be worse than you think. Corruption could be the best possibility. Now, if they truly believe, from the bottom of their hearts, in the true fallen creator, that would be trouble. And they would be irredeemable. Regardless, their characters, thoughts, and viewpoints would all be warped, turning into hidden lunatics. You can take action from this angle, letting other members of the 6-member council notice that something is amiss.
I've already reported the matter, but the chief doesn't seem to trust me too much.
Derek said, in a slightly aggrieved and heavy manner. Fours couldn't help but sigh.
That's because your chief is suspecting that you're possessed by Amun and planning something nefarious against the City of Silver.
Then what should I do? Even if I tell them of the existence of the fallen creator, they wouldn't believe me, am I right?
Derek asked anxiously. The Hanged Man pondered for 2 seconds before saying,
In truth, your chief should have begun paying attention to the Shepherd and the exploratory team members. For your City of Silver to survive to this day, the upper echelons will definitely have the most basic level of vigilance and not neglect any possible threats. The only problem is that the importance they place on this matter is definitely insufficient. At the very least, it's not as important as their attention on you and Amun.
Without waiting for the son to speak, he added after some deliberation,
Perhaps you can use this incident to wipe away the suspicion on you. Find an opportunity to make a particular exploratory team member to show the most thorough extent of an abnormality and enter into a conflict with him. That way, the other members of the 6-member council will notice that something isn't right and raise the priority on this matter. At the same time, hand over the suspected worm of time and say that you suddenly felt your mind be adrift while the conflict was happening and that you had no idea what happened. You only vaguely heard someone shouting "True Creator" before you woke up, and by then, you had already coughed out that worm. When an evil god is involved, there are many means and abilities that one wouldn't dare use without thought. Your chief would adhere to logic and guess that Amun's avatar and the mental corruption left behind by the True Creator had entered into conflict, eventually being destroyed and reduced to a dead worm. The surveillance on you would definitely decline significantly. If you act normally for an additional period of time, then the suspicion placed on you would be completely gone.
Why does Mr. Hanged Man seem so well-versed in this aspect?
Audrey thought with her mouth slightly open. Derek's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he felt that Mr. Hanged Man was indeed trustworthy. He had come up with such a good idea. He quickly asked,
Then, how do I make that exploratory team member display the most thorough extent of his abnormality?
Alger fell silent for a few seconds before saying,
I don't know.
He then added,
It would be great if there are items related to the True Creator.
With a whoosh, Audrey looked towards the fool who was seated at the end of the long bronze table. Chapter 394, Sights in the Spirit World. Klein knew very well why Miss Justice was looking at him. Being aware of the Lenivas incident, she was certain that he had many conflicts, both in the open and in the shadows, between himself and the True Creator, and that it was normal for him to have the corresponding items, perhaps even quite a few of them, in his possession. Klein sighed inwardly.
Logically speaking, there is nothing wrong with her thinking. In fact, I have crossed the true creator several times, and I do have an item that fits those descriptions.
There was no question about helping Little Son. There were many monsters in the forsaken land of God where the City of Silver was located, allowing the collection of several materials which were rare in the northern and southern continents. In addition, they had a contiguous history that was not distorted by any of the deities or churches. They gave the most objective stories and secrets prior to the cataclysm, and the knowledge involved was extremely valuable. Whether it was from the perspective of the Tarot Club's leader or simply considering his own interests, Klein had no intention of giving up Little Son or the City of Silver unless it was hopeless. However, there were certain things which were not suitable for Mr. Fool to voice out. Just as Audrey was looking expectantly at Mr. Fool, who was shrouded in a thick gray fog, the world, who had been silent all this time, finally opened his mouth.
I have an item that contains the mental corruption of the true creator.
He was referring to the all-black eye that marionettist Rosago had left behind. Alger thought as he organized his words.
An item containing the mental corruption of the true creator? This might be able to help the Sun. Once those exploratory team members, whose thoughts and viewpoints have been warped, sense the mental imprint of the true creator, there is a high possibility that they will mutate right on the spot.
The world looked at the Sun and laughed hoarsely.
Kid, I can lend you that item, but what will you be using to pay for it?
Having seen Hope, Derek's mind raced, suddenly remembering what had happened during previous gatherings, and quickly said,
I can help you find the characteristics of the human-skinned shadow, the mutated pituitary gland and blood of a thousand-faced hunter. I can also attempt to obtain the method to removing the mental corruption on an item left behind by a rampager. Whichever I get first will be used as payment.
Out of all of the options, the human-skinned shadow was relatively easy to encounter. It was one of the scarier monsters in the depths of the darkness. At this moment, Derek was not considering whether the exchange was of equal value or not. Even though a one-time loan of an item contaminated by the true creator was obviously not worth as much as the conditions he put forward, under the current circumstances, he could grit his teeth and accept whatever high price the world offered. Thus, he might as well proactively show his sincerity. The world nodded slightly.
Very good. I will ask for Mr. Fool's help to lend it to you.
As he spoke, he revealed the shape of the all-black eye and added,
It is the equivalent of a Sequence 5 Beyonder. If you lose it, you will have to provide me with compensation. Also, as soon as this is over, return it to me.
This was what Klein could not say in his capacity as the Fool. If a god-level existence like him kept harping about compensation and remember to return it to me, then the status he had built up for himself would have collapsed. In addition, Klein took into account the hidden dangers that lay in the future. The all-black eye and the other items were all things that he had used in the real world. If he were to bring in a new member who knew of this matter, they could confirm certain matters based on this point. Therefore, allowing Sherlock Moriarty to be equivalent to the world was clearly better than having Sherlock Moriarty be equivalent to the Fool. Klein sighed silently.
When your strength does not match your status, all I can do is tremble in fear, as if I were treading on thin ice or facing the abyss.
Seeing that Mr. Fool had not refused the world's request, nor did he point out any problems with the deal, Derek was relieved and quickly agreed to all the demands. At the same time, Audrey was genuinely happy for Little Son. Alger thought for a while before letting out a sigh. He then said to the Son in a measured tone,
Don't be too optimistic. How to seize this opportunity still needs to be organized. First, you have to choose a time and, without putting yourself in danger, have only one exploratory team member be present while there are several City of Silver citizens, or when they are all in a quarantined and sealed state. You have to use a wall of spirituality to seal the vessel that stores the corrupted item ahead of time and not allow anyone to notice it. By doing that, you can control the development of the situation. In addition, you need to consider how to hide that item after it is over. You must not let the 6-member council discover it. Otherwise, you will never be able to clear the suspicion on you.
The hanged man did not find it problematic to offer help.
If such an easily deceived fellow were to die, It would be difficult for me to obtain any more information regarding the forsaken land of God or the secrets of the ancient era.
Under his tutelage, Derek gradually had a complete plan and a few key points to take note of. He sincerely expressed his gratitude to every member in the gathering.
Thank you, Mr. Hangman. Thank you to all of you.
This made Audrey feel the satisfaction of doing a good deed. The matter of the sun came to an end at this point, and Fors, who had witnessed it all, suddenly had an idea. She ruffled her slightly curled long hair and said,
I wish to know which family the apprentice pathway belongs to. I am willing to use one of the chapters in the sites in the spirit world as a barter. Although the content is considered the ravings of a dreamer, many of the things described in it are true from my experiences into the spirit world.
The Sights in the Spirit World was one of the mysticism notebooks that Mrs. Alisa had left her. The logic of the content was incoherent, absurd, and just reading it alone left one irritable. However, when her body entered and left the spirit world 3 times for a variety of reasons, Fors discovered that the records in the notebook might not necessarily just be ravings. Sights in the spirit world? Klein leaned back slightly as he controlled the world to answer before the hanged man.
I know the answer, and I can give you some of the corresponding information for free.
He knew very well that the hanged man could also answer the magician's questions. Klein silently lampooned.
It is bad to have competition. That is why you need to combine it with free gifts.
All right.
Fors felt a surge of joy. CA. She discovered that the Tarot Club really was much more high-end than the other Beyonder circles that she had participated in before. Many difficult questions could be answered here. Yeobor apaha? At this moment, the world asked in a low voice, Sigis.
Do you want to hear the answer for yourself, or have everyone else hear it too?
Fors pondered for a few seconds, then caught Audrey and the others by surprise with her answer.
Just say it out here.
In her opinion, the answers to her own questions were of little help to others, and it did not matter if they found out, and if Mr. World had left something out, or gave an incomplete description and someone else happened to know the corresponding content, then she would be able to use the same sites in the Spirit World chapter to obtain the full picture. She believed that it was more important that way. Maias de se mostrab achapu of course de japer twest the gorillas. The world was not surprised and said in a low and hoarse voice,
In the 4th epoch, the apprentice pathway was wielded by the Abraham family. Later it was spread to the Tamara family, which had been in marriage alliances with it for extended periods of time. In the 5th epoch, which is the present epoch, the Theosophy order also has the apprentice and trickmaster potion formulas. They are widely believed to be related to the Abraham and Tamar families. Of course, there are also people who suspect that the Theosophy order is actually a guise of the demonist sect.
Considering that Miss Magician had already met with members of the Abraham family, Klein added via the world,
It is said that the Abraham family has suffered a bloodline curse all this time. They have no choice but to take up residence separately from each other in order to avoid danger.
Fors's eyes widened as she thought of her encounters.
Bloodline curse? Mrs. Elisa's husband belonged to the Abraham family, and that Mr. Lawrence is also a part of the Abraham family? Is that why she said that as long as one is not a member of the family clan, they would not suffer the curse? However, I used the bracelet, and it belongs to the Abraham family?
Once again, regret gnawed at her soul. Kursafi shaf achazachabas eshaf achazafachanachabas eshaf achazafachazafachazafi. This was the first time that Alger and Audrey was hearing about the bloodline curse of the Abraham family. Both of them had their own thoughts, so no one spoke up for a short period of time. After a while, Forrest took a deep breath and said,
Thank you, Mr. World. You have answered the biggest question I have. I will copy the first chapter of the sites in the spirit world after the end of this gathering and sacrifice it to Mr. Fool. Is that okay, Mr. Fool?
The hanged man suddenly looked at her.
The magician is a descendant of the Abraham family? It is no wonder her body can enter and exit the spirit world. She likely possesses a corresponding mystical item.
Audrey nodded, as if she was thinking about something.
Force is a member of the Abraham family. She was born in an ancient family dating back to the 4th epoch.
After receiving a positive reply from Mr. Fool, Force relaxed and began mentioning her desire to buy the Beyonder ingredients, stomach pouch of a spirit eater, and the blood of a deep-sea marlin. Unfortunately, the sun was not going out during this period of time, so there was nothing. As for the hanged man, he merely mentioned that he had clues to the deep-sea marlin's blood. No one had obtained the formula for the wind-blessed potion yet. On the other hand, Audrey was not in a hurry to purchase the psychiatrist formula because she was about to join the psychology alchemists. Klein originally wanted to sell either the werewolf Beyonder characteristic or biological poison bottle, but after considering the latter's compatibility with his spirit body state and the current financial situation of the members, he temporarily gave up on that idea. The transaction segment quickly ended, and the gathering reached the stage where each of them could share information they had heard about. Audrey slowly looked around and said with a slight smile,
Last week, an interesting case happened in Backland. The protagonist is called the hero bandit Black Emperor.
Chapter 395, The Sheriff Beyonder Characteristics. Black Emperor? The hanged man, who was casually listening to Miss Justice, suddenly raised his head. His gaze suddenly became sharp and piercing. He had just learned that the card in Mr. Fool's hand was one of the cards of blasphemy created by Emperor Roselle. The name of the card was Black Emperor. Does this have to do with Mr. Fool? Alger quickly glanced at the end of the long bronze table, before immediately lowering his head.
If it was really done by Mr. Fool's Blessed, this definitely isn't a simple matter.
Alger listened attentively to Miss Justice's subsequent descriptions. Force, who had long since learned of this from Shio and had some predictions about it, also gave the fool a glance. She wanted to see the truth from the concealed entity's reaction, but the fool remained as calm as ever in the thick gray fog. Audrey, who wasn't able to glean anything either, paused for a moment, then continued.
The victim is a tycoon, Kapim. Many rumors point to him being the biggest human trafficker in Backland. Hero bandit Black Emperor infiltrated his villa and robbed him of his life, rescuing many innocent girls who were locked up in his underground dungeon. When Kapim's corpse was discovered, it was covered with a deck of tarot cards. His face was covered with the cards, Judgment and the Emperor.
She didn't mention the safe as she found it unimportant.
Covered with tarot cards? Is that the symbol for when our tarot club takes action? Wait a minute. A human trafficker?
Alger sharply noticed a phrase. He turned to the end of the long bronze table and humbly asked,
Mr. Fool, is Kapim related to the disappearance of the colonial slaves?
The latter was a mission had been assigned to him by the Church of Storms, and he had formally targeted a suspect named Balin and had asked Backland residents, Justice, the Magician, and the World to keep an eye out for him. As a result, upon hearing the word human trafficker, Alger intuitively believed that it had something to do with the disappearance of many tribes on the southern continent and the flight of many slaves from many islands in the Sonia Sea. He felt that only a matter such as this, which seemed to hold some secrets, could interest Mr. Fool.
Of course, it cannot be ruled out that it was an independent act by Mr. Fool's Blessed. He couldn't possibly be waiting for everything to be arranged like a manipulated puppet.
Alger thought.
Kapim has something to do with the recent disappearance of the colonial slaves? On second thought, that's not a possibility that can be eliminated. There were 4 Beyonders in his villa, and that in itself isn't normal in the first place. Even if a tycoon like him were to hire Beyonder bodyguards, then he would only be able to get a sequence 7 and 2 sequences, 8s or 9s at most. Back then, Haras, together with his mystical items, was equivalent to a sequence 5 expert.
The hanged man's words jolted Klein's thoughts as he felt that the matter could vaguely be linked together. However, he wasn't sure about his theory, and he could only disregard the hanged man's question. He chuckled and said,
My Blessed made some minor contributions in this matter.
As expected.
Audrey's eyes shone brightly as she cheered in her heart.
As expected. It's the first time that I encountered anything to do with the Tarot Club in real life.
Fors was half happy and half wistful. Alger believed that Mr. Fool's words were an indirect confirmation of his conjecture. Capim was definitely not a simple human trafficker. Otherwise, he wouldn't have caused a hidden existence's blessed to take action. Therefore, there was a strong correlation between the human trafficking and the disappearance of the slaves. Both were matters that weren't simple. Without waiting for Miss Justice to speak, Klein lightly tapped his finger on the edge of the ancient long table and leisurely added,
He obtained 2 Beyonder characteristics from this matter and wishes to sell them as quickly as possible. The 2 characteristics correspond to Sequence 8 Sheriff, and the other is Sequence 7 Interrogator.
Sheriff, Interrogator. Aren't those from the Arbiter pathway which is controlled by the Augustus family? Only members of the royal family, ancient nobles, and the military could possibly acquire them. Capim had one of them backing him, not excluding the possibility of the Fainapotter Kingdom's Castilla family.
Alger frowned, feeling that the disappearance of the slaves wasn't as simple as it seemed. Audrey's thoughts were similar to his. She had never thought that the Beyonders at Capim's villa would be from the Arbiter pathway.
It's impossible that the faction in control of the corresponding formulas would collude with a human trafficker like Capim.
Audrey pursed her lips slightly, puzzled and confused. Sheriff? Fors, who knew that her good friend Shio was saving up for the potion ingredients for this sequence, sat up hurriedly and asked in puzzlement,
Mr. Fool, what are Beyonder characteristics?
That's not what I expected. Shouldn't you directly ask me how much it is? That's right. I don't think I've ever told Miss Magician about the law of Beyonder characteristics, indestructibility, and conservation.
Klein was taken aback for a moment, and then he began to consider his tone, and at that moment, Audrey spoke out on his behalf.
Mr. Fool, may I answer the question? The corresponding payment shall be paid directly to you.
She and Fors are friends, and she had volunteered out of the fear that Mr. Fool wouldn't share that knowledge again. Klein smiled in response.
No problem. Miss Justice is always able to worry about the things that trouble me.
He sighed with emotion inwardly. Phew! Audrey breathed a silent sigh of relief and turned to face Fors. She deliberately didn't use the pronunciation and unique vocabulary of a noble to say,
Do you want to know the answer? What are you willing to pay?
Fors nodded without hesitation.
Of course.
She looked at the figure shrouded in gray fog and respectfully asked,
Mr. Fool, can I use another chapter of the sites in the spirit world as payment?
She specifically emphasized another because she knew that the chapter she would give to Mr. World would be first sacrificed to Mr. Fool, and the knowledge that could be viewed at any time didn't seem to have any value for a transaction. It wasn't to say that she suspected that a mighty figure like Mr. Fool would peak. She just felt that it was more sincere to change the chapter.
Sometimes, a mighty figure only cares about your attitude.
Fors had read such things in many novels. Leaning back in his chair, Klein replied in an unconcerned tone,
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Fool.
Fors said, unable to suppress her smile. She instinctively believed that she had come into contact with certain secret high-level knowledge. Audrey was completely relieved as she smiled faintly.
In the Beyonder world, there is a law. Remember, it's a law. In similar pathways, the total Beyonder characteristics are conserved, never reducing or increasing. It will only move from one entity to another, changing from one form to another. Therefore, after the death of a Beyonder, their characteristics will be separated and become equivalent to the main ingredient of a potion. Oh, apart from the remains of rampagers. There are too many latent troubles with those, so they can only be made into items.
After the death of a Beyonder, their characteristics will be separated and become equivalent to the main ingredient of a potion? In that instance, it was as if lightning flashed through Fors's mind, allowing her to understand many things.
It turns out that the remains Mrs. Elisa left me was her Beyonder characteristic. It turns out that in the eyes of others, every Beyonder is equivalent to walking ingredients. That's really dark.
Fors clenched her fists tightly, feeling that the Beyonder world was essentially filled with madness. However, she didn't feel disgusted by the fact that she had become a Beyonder because she had consumed the Beyonder characteristics left behind by Mrs. Elisa. Instead, it gave her a faint sense of warmth. After losing her mother before she met Chio, Mrs. Elisa was the person who treated her the best. For Fours, it was a sad but warm experience for her to inherit Mrs. Elisa's remains and be with her forever.
So that's the case. The law of Beyonder characteristics indestructibility and conservation. That means the characteristic left behind by a Sheriff Beyonder is equivalent to all the main ingredients?
Fours asked an additional question to verify her thoughts. Audrey also thought of CO.
Yes.
Fours immediately stood up and bowed to the mysterious existence that was looking down at everything.
Mr. Fool, can you get your bless to reserve the Sheriff's corresponding Beyonder characteristic? I wish to buy it, but I temporarily lack the funds. Please give me another week, is that fine?
Klein took on an attitude as though he didn't care.
Sure.
Fours heaved a sigh of relief and quickly asked,
How much does your blessed wish to receive in gold pounds?
The price of a corresponding Sequence 8 Beyonder ingredient is around 300 pounds.
Klein smiled.
600 pounds.
After naming the price, he immediately switched topics, showing that he didn't care about a Sequence 8 Beyonder characteristic. He looked around and conjured a few goatskin parchments.
This is the meaning of a portion of Roselle's secret symbols. It's considered free knowledge, making it easier for you to collect the diary entries in the future.
The information included numbers and dates. The reason why Klein had taught the members of the Tarot Club this information was that he was afraid that they would later end up buying counterfeits.
With the knowledge of dates, they'll be able to eliminate most counterfeits.
Klein chuckled inwardly. Audrey and the others were pleasantly surprised, never expecting to gain such knowledge. Although they had already discovered that the secret symbols on the goatskin were the simplest ones, they all believed that this was a good start. With a first time, there would be a second time, and a third time. After a short exchange, Klein said in a gentle tone,
Let us end today's gathering here.
By your will.
Audrey, Alger, and the others stood up at the same time and bowed. The crimson rays of light dissipated, and the ancient palace above the gray fog returned to its former tranquility. Only Klein was left sitting alone on the high-backed chair belonging to the Fool.